So this is my video on the Green Witch Tarot. I just purchased it today, so I thought I'd give it a little review. It's really beautiful, and right away you sort of feel a connection to nature. There's sort of a pastoral feel, a very autumn fall feel. I think it was a perfect purchase for this season. This is the box that it comes in, and it's packaged very nicely. The cards themselves are beautiful. This is the back of the card, which is nice. It doesn't lend itself super well to reversals, obviously, because you can see that upside down it doesn't look quite the same. But I haven't finished reading the book yet, so I'm not sure if that was intentional or not. For me, a lot of the times when I have a reversal, I don't quite notice it in the pack anyways, so I don't think this is going to be a huge problem for me. Usually for me it kind of happens out of the blue and then I'm like, oh, a reversal, oops. So that's not a huge concern for me, but for someone it is. That might be a bit of a drawback. I really love the coloring. I love the feel of the cards, although I do have to say the cardstock isn't of the highest quality. I'm super thankful that it's not thick and difficult to maneuver, but it's almost just verging on too thin. By comparison, I have the Rider-Waite cards, the Centennial Edition, and those are very thin and they're small, but they don't feel cheap. And unfortunately, these ones don't have the best of quality, but I don't find it detracts too much from it. I'm able to shuffle it quite well. I actually prefer smaller cards, which is why the Centennial Edition was so appealing to me. I do have larger cards. I have the Wildwood Tarot, which I find very large in my hands and a bit more thick and solid, so it can be difficult at times to shuffle. Because these are so thin and a little bit flimsy, I actually find that it makes it a little bit easier for me to shuffle, so if there is one positive to that, it would be that. So I wanted to just share with you a few of my favorite cards from the deck. I haven't really done the whole get to know your deck thing yet, so that's going to be tonight. But just on an initial flip through, these were some of the cards that really struck me, in no particular order, but here, I'll do them one at a time. So you've got the Holly King here. I just love that sort of winter feel to it. The colors are just beautiful. It's dark, but it's not menacing. In fact, it kind of reminds me of a Christmas evening or whatever holiday you like to celebrate. It just brings a sense of warmth, actually. I really found that card touching. I love this card. I like how they incorporate children into the deck more often than you see in some other cards. And I just like the sort of ritualistic in the middle of the woods at night under the moon. I mean, there's just something so touching to that. And spiritual and dreamy. And I think that's just a beautiful card. Here's the moon. Once again, another card at nighttime. And yet it doesn't feel dark. This pack is very light-hearted. There's an innocence to it. A sort of peacefulness, which I enjoy. I think this would be a really great pack for reading with children or for reading with someone who doesn't quite like some of the more darker themes. This pack feels very lighthearted and nice in that way. Here's the star. It does deviate a bit from the regular RWS packs, so in that system. So if you are thinking of purchasing these cards, know that you might have to do a little bit of studying, but not too much. It does follow it fairly closely. And it does come with a beautiful guidebook. Although I did find the guidebook a little bit limiting, so I forget what was the card that I pulled, but I was reading it, and it only had a reading that pertained to work and job security. And the question I had asked the card, now, to be fair, I haven't bonded with my deck, so maybe it wasn't the proper one for me to pull yet, but I find in some other packs they give you a more generalized idea of what the card could mean or what direction it could go in, whether person or event, and this book didn't quite do that for me. So I think if you are going to pick up this pack, if you're a beginner, remember to rely mostly on your intuition and not necessarily on what they're telling you the cards should mean. And I would say that for most packs, anyways. But I know for myself, who's, I'm not quite a beginner, but I'm not extremely experienced either. I do like to have the packs and the meanings behind the cards just for my own personal reference. It doesn't mean I always adhere to them, but I do find it useful. And so I know that I'm going to have to do a little bit closer bonding with this pack in order to really be confident in my readings, especially if I was reading for other people. So here we have the Five of Chalices. Look at that lovely scene. There's just so much detail in the cards, and I love the incorporation of animals and nature. It really is a very natural feeling pack. If you're a green witch, I mean, obviously that's what the pack is called. Or if you're just someone who bonds very closely with nature, I mean, I highly recommend. Here's another card. I just love the colors in this one. Each card seems to really tell a story, and I really enjoy that. I find when you're connecting with the deck, it's so wonderful if you can follow a story of some sort, or when you look at the cards, there just seems to be so much more meaning behind them than what's right in front of you. And I really find this deck lends to that, sort of multi-card readings. Sorry if my hands are shaking, I don't have the steadiest hands. This one is eerie. It's one of the more darker cards in the pack, and I would say this is almost as dark as it gets. And yet there's still like cute little touches in there. When I saw this, I really connected with this card, and I'm very, very interested to see what kind of readings that brings me. Here's the Eight of Wands. You can just see a lot of rituals taking place, just peaceful witches doing what they do. I just find it so inspiring. And the Lord of Shadows was the last one I wanted, not only because I love the name of this card, but just there's this dark figure almost praying and watching these two figures recede into the background, and yet I'm not entirely sure if it's a negative presence. I mean, the Lord of Shadows seems to suggest that, but the butterflies and the light imagery, I'm not sure. It's very interesting. I'm really excited to read what the card's intended meaning is for that one. So that's all. I just thought I would share that with you, and if you have any comments on the pack and how you've bonded with it and how you've liked that, please feel free to message me and share. I'd love to hear it.